10 minutes. Thank you for your testimony. The previous administration's open border policy brought millions of people to this country. We don't know everyone's background or true intent for entering, but we know many of these had ill intent. Given the Iran conflict, what steps has Homeland Security taken to protect the potential against potential Iranian sleeper cells and related terrorism?
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. We work every single day with our intelligence agencies and law enforcement partners to make sure that we are investigating and finding any threats to the homeland here within our borders. We work with the FBI often, and Homeland Security Investigations specializes in this kind of work each and every day. Not only that, we go back and we are revetting some of the individuals and some of the programs that we may have concerns about, looking at social media, also going through those interviews that are necessary for some of our programs that the Biden administration abused and perverted under their time there as well. We look at the fact, Mr. Chairman, that over the last administration, when millions of people streamed across our border, we don't necessarily know who all came into our country. We know that we have many dangerous individuals that came in unvetted, and we are working every single day to find them and to make sure that we're preventing the next attack and preventing the next crime they may perpetuate against the American people. Yeah.
You heard in my opening statement about the Inspector General's report on airport security screening. After Congress had been told of the report, you announced $1 billion in airport security upgrades. Press report have sources attacking you for changing the shoe removal policy. Does the $1 billion investment relate to the issue in the Inspector General's report? And then I have a follow-up to that.
Well, sir, I can't speak directly to that report because it is classified. I will tell you that all of the recommendations that the Inspector General had in that report have already been implemented, and that there was flawed data included in it. What I will tell you is the $1 billion investment is necessary at our TSA security checkpoints because it's been over a decade since a significant upgrade has happened. We have new technologies that can be used in X-ray baggage scanners, abilities to use information and new technologies to scan individuals that would be more efficient, allow people to get through the security checkpoint and get to their planes on time and ensure their safety. The number one priority of TSA is security, and we make sure that we are continuing to use all of the options and tools available to us to make sure that they are safe as they travel through our airports and in our airways.
Thank you for that report. The follow-up is, was going to ask for those details, but you've given me those details. Have these details been communicated to the Inspector General?
Yes, they have, sir. And I wanted to also, in regards to your comments in your opening statement, there's nothing preventing the IG from coming and briefing members of Congress, and he's free to do that. We just need to remember it's a classified document and use those protocols to ensure that it remains classified.
Regarding Afghan evacuee oversight of mine, you informed my office that thousands of Afghan parolees were potential national security risks. Nearly 1,000 was reported to me on August 12th last year. What steps have you taken with the interagency partners to investigate these parolees, and what, if any, national security concerns still exist because of the previous administration's failures to vet?
Well, Mr. Chairman, some of the things that we have implemented under President Trump's administration is to go back and look at those individuals who came in under Operation Allies Welcome and make sure that we're re-vetting those, especially those that have come in the last 4 years under the Biden administration, recognizing that they weren't tracking necessarily biometrics or their social media present communication, how they were doing since they've come to the United States. And also, sir, there's a requirement under that program to come back every single year and do an interview to discuss with them and have conversations on what they're doing in the United States, how they're transitioning to the United States under that program, and that was not being done. So we're going back and re-vetting all of those individuals and making sure that we know that if someone is here in this country, that they love America, they want to be a part of our way of life, and they don't wish to do us harm.
I'd like to have you provide me an update on the Afghan evacuee data. As I said in my opening, Trump administration has located over 145,000 children that the previous administration lost. Your department is also performing welfare checks on these children. Describe the ongoing efforts that your department is taking to find children who've yet to be located, and how recent welfare checks expose previous vetting failures.
Yes, I would say those 450,000 children that came into this country that were unaccompanied alien children were lost by the Biden administration, not tracked. We've located about 145,000 of them, and we've done that through the investigative work of our Homeland Security Investigations team. They are phenomenal at the work that they do, and they specialize in child trafficking, sex trafficking, and finding individuals that would perpetuate that harm against our children. The one thing that has been challenging is that under the Biden administration, the government paid sponsors in HHS in order to host these children. And those sponsors, many times, we found instances where they trafficked these children themselves. So under that administration, we not only had children that were in this country as a part of a program, the government was paying individuals that were knowingly trafficking them and abusing them. That has stopped. We have gone through and found these children and put them back with their families when we have the opportunity to do so, and with loved ones that will care for them. And I would say that even in one case, we have other countries where we've been working with them to get their children back home, where we've been prevented returning these families back and helping them to be reunified by activist judges. But we will continue to work to ensure that these individuals and these children that were abused by the trafficking over the border have the opportunity to be brought back to their families and to their loved ones going forward.
I want to bring up administrative warrants. There's been questions raised about your department use of them. Immigration laws include complex and specialized legal processes. For the record today, please briefly discuss how the administrative warrant works and how often they're used.
Well, an administrative warrant is utilized on a regular basis because it's the process that Congress has given us. It's the process in immigration law that you've given us to ensure that someone is returned back to their home country. And I would say that most of the time when it gets talked about, it's inaccurate. In the 400,000 cases that ICE has used these administrative warrants, only 28 times have they been used to enter a home. So it is the legal process that we have, that we follow as given to us by Congress, and it's been affirmed by the Supreme Court as the correct way to follow the law. We will continue using this tool as it's important in the duties that the Department of Homeland Security is responsible for.
Under both Democrat and Republican presidents, I've conducted oversight of employees called special government employees. By law, these employee is limited to 130 days a year of government work, and it's been understood that a partial day is 1 day at work. Have you ensured the SGE personnel follow all laws, rules, and regulations as intended?
Yes, sir. They have career officials at the Department of Homeland Security that track that data, and they've all followed the laws and the rules regarding special government employees.
You stated that the Department of Government Efficiency found software on your government devices that was used to improperly surveil you and other political officials. What's the status of the investigation into that matter, and has any disciplinary action taken?
Yes, sir, there was software that was doing surveillance on political appointees at the Department of Homeland Security. And there was measures put in place where some people were removed from their positions and accountability measures put in place. And we continue to monitor our systems as the agency that is trusted with cybersecurity and ensuring that our critical infrastructure is protected from hacking attempts from foreign nationals who wish to do us harm or individuals within this country. We take seriously the amount of software, surveillance, and work that we do within the department as well.
My 10 minutes are up. Senator Durbin.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Secretary Noem, the nation has watched horrified as immigration agents killed Renée Good, Alex Pretti. In Chicago, one of your Border Patrol agents shot Miramar Martinez 5 times after ramming her car. You and your agency rushed to brand these victims as, quote, domestic terrorists. We have ample video evidence and eyewitness testimony proving you are wrong. Your statements caused immeasurable pain to these families. Let me give you an opportunity to do the right thing. Do you retract these statements identifying these individuals as domestic terrorists?
You know, Senator Dermott, when we have these situations happen, we always offer our condolences to those families, and I offer mine as well. These are tragic situations, and I can't imagine what these families go through in losing a loved one. What I will say is we always work to provide the American people with as much information as possible, that we're relying on reports from the ground and from agents that are there, and working to be transparent, and we'll continue to do all that we can to provide the accurate information and the facts to people as we can.
Where did you get that information? In a recent hearing before the HISGAC committee, CBP and ICE officials testified under oath that their agencies did not inform you that Pretti was a domestic terrorist during that hearing, stated during that hearing.
I was getting reports from the ground from agents at the scene, and I would say that it was a chaotic scene, as you've seen in Minneapolis and St. Paul, as immigration enforcement has gone forward, and we've worked at targeting the worst of the worst, that many times our agents have been faced with violent
the victims of
protesters.
That violence domestic terrorists as a way to calm the scene?
These violent terrorists have put them in a situation where it's unprecedented what these agents have faced it. So that situation on the ground that day was chaotic. And it was something that they were transpiring and sharing information
brand them as
with
domestic
us.
Terrorists? Can you explain why you decided to brand these victims that we all saw on video, who were out protesting the activities of your agency and were killed as a result of it? How did you think that calling them domestic terrorists at that scene was somehow going to calm the situation?
You know, Senator, we are working in those situations where there's a tragic loss of life, and that there is something that our agents are involved in, that we continue to deliver information.
Is it so hard to say you were wrong?
We continue, as these investigations continue to go, we will provide, I absolutely strive to provide factual information, and we'll continue to do that.
And when you fail, do you admit it publicly?
Absolutely. We always know that there's room for improvement, that we will.
Stop the clock, so.
Keith Porter Jr. and Dr. Linda Davis. They were Americans killed by ICE. You have not given their family any justice. Say their names. Their Black Lives Matter. Their Black Lives Matter. Their Black Lives Matter. Their Black Lives Matter.
I think you can proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to turn to another incident where DHS is concealing the facts from the American public. Geraldo Luna Campos died in an immigration detention. DHS claimed he killed himself, but an independent medical examiner found his death was a homicide. Witnesses stated Mr. Campos was strangled by the guards at a detention facility. Instead of investigating this death, your department tried to deport the witnesses to the crime. It took a judge intervening to ensure the fact that these witnesses remain in the country for investigation. Secretary Noem, who ordered those witnesses be deported?
Sir, I can't speak to the details of that case as it continues to be investigated, but I do know that within our detention facilities, we have the highest federal standards of any detention facilities compared to state or other local facilities that may detain.
There was an effort to deport the witnesses?
Sir, I'm not aware of that, and I will continue to look at that. Whenever there is an incident where we have someone who works for DHS that has done something wrong, there is always an evaluation, an investigation, and there is consequences for that. So we will continue to do that investigation and make sure that the right thing is done if
Who's
something
doing
was,
the investigation?
there are internal investigations
Internal
within,
investigation. Is that what you're saying?
yes, ICE and,
Outside independent agency that's part of that investigation?
not that I'm aware of at this point in time, but I may not be able to speak to the details of this case because I'm not fully
Shame,
informed
a
on it.
man lost his life. Just last week, the Republican-appointed chief federal judge in Minnesota identified over 200 court orders that ICE officials had violated in the last 2 months. He wrote, quote, "The court is not aware of another occasion in the history of the United States in which a federal court has had to threaten contempt again and again and again to force the U.S. government to comply with court orders." In a sworn declaration, the Trump Justice Department itself acknowledged that your agency has violated court orders more than 50 times in recent weeks in one state, New Jersey. Secretary Noem, is DHS required to follow federal court orders?
Yes, sir, and we do comply with federal court orders.
How do you explain that your agency has repeatedly violated court orders, as your own administration has admitted?
Sir, we follow court orders, and when they apply and when the jurisdiction and decision is applicable to a federal agency like ours.
I'm sorry, would you clarify what you ended that with?
We follow court orders when they are given to us. Federal court orders we follow,
So
absolutely.
these judges are wrong?
No, I'm not saying that they're wrong, and I can't speak specifically to that statement that was given.
Let me ask you about DACA. Are you familiar with the program?
Nope.
Do you understand the people that are covered and protected by DACA have to go through a background check, which includes a criminal check? Yes or no?
Yes.
You do? Last week, your agency informed us that last year ICE arrested 261 DACA holders and deported 86 of them. We learned about a DACA recipient who'd lived in this country for decades, was arrested by ICE at her green card appointment. In tears, she hugged her daughter goodbye. She was deported to Mexico within 24 hours. Madam Secretary, why have you deported dozens of DACA holders who had to comply with a criminal background check to be eligible for DACA?
Sir, we follow all laws as applicable to the Department of Homeland Security
Why
and
did you
how we
deport
handle
them?
detainment and deportations.
Why did you deport them?
I don't know the details of that specific case you just read, but I'll look into it, sir. But we ensure that we follow the law that applies to our department and who we detain and who we deport back to their home
You
countries.
clearly violated the law if that is the case. Let me ask you about the fact that 85% of the 400,000 immigrants that ICE arrested during President Trump's first term in office had no violent criminal record. The president said over and over at his rallies, "We're going after the worst of the worst, the terrorists, the murderers, the rapists." And then it turns out that 85% of the people you've gone after have no criminal history whatsoever. How do you explain that?
Sir, when you talk about violent crimes, what you're saying, the crimes that don't matter, that you aren't counting, are ones that affect American families every single day. You're not counting DUIs, you're not counting embezzlements, you're not counting theft, and you're not counting the other crimes against people and drug trafficking and proliferating that. So if you don't count those as crimes, that these individuals and impacting families in this country,
They are counted, and they calculate
Those-
14% of those that
those
you
are not
arrested.
counted in your 14%. If you were counting crimes that these individual illegal aliens in this country have committed, it would be well over 65 to 70% of the individuals that are detained today have those crimes on their record, besides the crime of being in this country
Going to back that
illegally.
up with some information for me?
Absolutely, I will.
I certainly hope you will. How does taking a father from a child dying of cancer qualify? Where would that be? Is that a violent crime?
I don't know what you're speaking or
I'll tell you
referencing
exactly
to.
what I'm speaking of. Ruben Torres, 2 weeks ago, buried his daughter Ophelia. When he was arrested at the Home Depot in Norridge, Illinois, he said to those who, your agents, "Please let me go home. My daughter is dying of cancer. I would like to be with her in her last days of her life." They said no. They arrested him and deported him for 2 weeks. Finally, he returned for a court hearing. His daughter lived to see that hearing where the court said he was treated unfairly by your agency, and she died 3 days later. I was at her memorial service. Is that really necessary? Was he a violent criminal?
Sir, we enforce the law. The laws that are passed by
What
this
law?
body and signed into statute on the process for individuals that are in this country illegally, that have final removal orders in the process given in immigration law. We continue to follow that, and if you don't like the law, I would suggest you change the law, but that is what we do
We tried
every
to
single
change the
day is
law
go
with-
out there.
We tried to change it with comprehensive immigration reform, and it was stopped by the Republican House of Representatives.
Our job at the department is to follow the law and make sure that we are a nation of laws, because
I don't
a
think
nation
you're-
that
I
doesn't
don't
follow
think
the
you're even
law
close when it comes to that.
is no nation at all.
I yield, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Graham.
Thank you very much for coming. Can you hear me?
Yep,
Thank
now
you.
we can.
Thanks very much. Well, let's talk about the scope of the problem you inherited here. My Democratic friends said that sensible immigration is what they've been pursuing, talked about the Gang of Eight and a lot of things I've worked on with. Would you say that the 4 years of Biden was sensible immigration?
No.
I wouldn't either. I would say it's an obliteration of the border. 11 million people came into this country during President Biden's term. He obliterated all controls. We sent them all over the country in planes, trains, and automobiles. And what's the scope of the problem you inherited? How would you describe the mess that Biden gave you very quickly?
Our country was in a chaotic time and invaded over our southern border. Millions and millions of people came into this country.
For 11,000
unvetted.
murderers, right?
Yes, that is correct.
2,700% increase in people on the terrorist watch list, right?
That's correct.
During his 4 years, President Biden allowed 2,700% increase of people on the terrorist watch list to come into this country. In 2023, 172. Do you know where those people are?
No, not necessarily.
So we don't know where they are. They're here, but we don't know where they are because they didn't care if they came and they haven't really looked very hard. So sensible immigration died on Biden's watch. It was replaced by out of control, open border, just absolute chaos. And to all the people in the front row that have lost loved ones, I am sorry. Your family members are a victim of an out of control, Democratic-led effort to obliterate the border, and every senator on this side of the aisle, that side of the aisle, did nothing about it. Now they want to talk to you about problems we've had. Are these shootings being investigated in Minnesota?
Yes, they are.
They should be investigated in Minnesota. We want to have orderly processes. How would you say being an ICE agent is right now, the stress they're under?
I think it's unprecedented for them every day.
I think it's miserable. I think it's just a tough, tough job right now. And if they go too far, we will hold them accountable. But I just want the country to know these men and women who are trying to solve this problem that was created by our Democratic colleagues, you have no idea the mess they inherited. This country was overrun by illegal immigrants, murderers, rapists, and just average everyday people. How many people did Barack Obama deport when he was president?
The total, I
3
don't know, but it
million.
was more than us.
How many of them were violent criminals? So when a Democrat deports somebody who's here illegally, that's good government. When a Republican does it, we're Nazis and fascists. If you're here illegally, are you entitled to stay?
No.
They would allow you to stay. I want you to understand that these people have no interest in cleaning up this mess. In 2026, we're going to have an election about this, and they're openly saying, unless you're a violent criminal, you should be allowed to stay here. Is embezzlement a violent crime?
No.
Is it a crime without a victim?
Yes.
If somebody steals your stuff, even if they don't do it through force, is that a crime with a victim?
Yes.
So all of the Laken Riley, I think she was murdered by a man who was actually in custody. Are you familiar with the Laken Riley case?
Yes, I am.
Okay, she's a young lady about 60 miles from where I live. The man who murdered her was in custody, was detained by DHS, but was released because they had no bed space in Texas. He went to New York and committed a bunch of crimes. He winds up in Georgia and he murders this young lady. He was in our control. He was released not because he wasn't dangerous, because we had no place to put him. Do you agree those days are over?
Yes.
Do you agree the most secure border in American history has been achieved by you and those under your control?
Yes.
working with President Trump. Are you proud of that?
I am proud of that.
So we're down to like nobody coming across. We went from a invasion to almost nobody. And I hope the American people appreciate that's a good thing for you. Now we're engaged in military action against the mothership of terrorism, Iran, which I hope will sink pretty soon. Do you think the threat level against the United States is up or down when it comes to radical Islamic terrorists?
It's up.
It's up?
Yep.
So you mean they actually may want to come here and hit us because we hit them in Iran? I don't think you have to be, a general to figure that out. Is the Coast Guard without funding?
Portions of it. We're keeping some of the salaries paid, but
So there's no funds in the appropriation bill for the Coast Guard. Is that correct?
that is correct.
Because your agency is not being funded. It's the one part of the appropriations bill where we haven't agreed on funding. Is that correct?
Correct.
So FEMA, no money, right? Coast Guard, no money. Really? Really? ICE, they have money because of the bill we did before. The Secret Service, are these people being paid?
Yes, they are.
They're being paid, but do we have money?
Our law enforcement is paid, but their resources, their administrative
They're not
staff,
being
their
paid out of
contracting.
appropriated funds
Correct.
this year, right?
Correct.
So in the appropriations process, we've got no new money for the Secret Service. Does that make any sense to anybody in America? Can we not understand America is under siege now? Likely to be attacked because radical Islam is under siege and they're going to hit back. And we're sitting here looking at each other and not funding DHS. If you want to reform ICE, great. Count me in. If you want to make DHS more professional, count me in. If you want to investigate bad shootings, count me in. If you don't want to do away with sanctuary cities, count me out. What's a sanctuary city?
A city that protects itself from our federal immigration efforts in their city.
Are there sanctuary cities and states in this country?
Yes, there are.
Look at this chart. There are 200 plus sanctuary counties. There are 12 sanctuary states. 8 million illegal immigrants reside in sanctuary jurisdictions in defiance of federal law. A sanctuary city refuses to turn over to the federal government people that are subject to deportation. Is that correct?
Correct.
They make a choice, these sanctuary states, counties, cities, not to cooperate with federal officials, and the laws have been on the book long before Donald Trump, right?
Correct.
Do you think it would be good for the country to abolish sanctuary cities and states?
I do.
Do you believe as long as they exist, it will be a magnet for future immigration, illegal immigration?
Yes, I do.
So if you're a legal immigrant and you can get to one of these sanctuary cities, states, or towns, you believe you'll never leave. Until you fix this, you're going to have illegal immigrant magnets. Do you agree with that?
Yes.
Would you urge the Congress to abolish sanctuary cities
Yes, I would, sir.
and sanctuary states? When it comes to the threat level against our homeland, how would you characterize it right now?
Right now, I would say, sir, that we should have our every effort within the Department of Homeland Security out protecting people 24/7, because we face not just enemies from overseas that threaten our way of life and our American values. The Biden administration let them here. They let them in our borders. They're in our hometowns. They are unvetted, thousands and thousands of people that are dangerous criminals, gang members, known and
Who's this
suspected
guy?
terrorists.
Who's this guy?
He is the man that conducted the horrific act down in Austin.
Okay, what country did he come from?
I think Senegal.
Okay, and he was killed in Austin, Texas, right?
He was.
And the shirt said what?
Property of Allah.
Property of Allah. And when you went to his house, you found a what kind of flag?
Iranian flag.
Iranian flag. Wonder how many people are like that here, waiting to pounce. And DHS doesn't have appropriated funds. This is insane. There are more people like this. We obliterated our borders. 1.7 million people came into this country from countries that were designated to be a problem. Special interest aliens. Are you familiar with that?
Yes, I am.
So 1.7 million came from countries that would make you a special interest alien because of the nature of the country. Libya, Nigeria, North Korea, Afghanistan, China, Cuba. Do you know where those 1.7 million people are?
Not all of them.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know where they are either. But they let them in. We don't know where they are. They came from countries that are so dicey. We made you a special interest alien if you came from those countries. So we're having a hearing here. I'd like to make ICE more professional. I'd like to make sure if there was a bad shooting, it's documented as such and people pay a price. But I will not apologize to anybody in this room to try to clean up the mess that Biden started and you empowered. We've got to deal with this. We've been invaded. Only God knows how many people are here and what they're up to, and we're not going to stop. We're going to learn, but we're not going to stop because America is under siege, and the idea we're not defunding DHS is insane, criminally insane.
Senator Wade.
Thanks very much, Chairman. Let me start by noting that we have repeatedly said, our ranking member on the Senate Appropriations Committee, Senator Murray, has said that we are more than willing to fund TSA, more than willing to fund the Coast Guard, more than willing to fund FEMA, and that it is the administration that is holding those agencies hostage in order to extract additional funding for ICE and CBP. That is our quite clearly stated position, and I just wanted to recognize that now. Ms. Noem, I want to walk you through an incident that took place in Rhode Island. We have a courthouse in Rhode Island, our Superior Court. The court had an agreement with your organization not to conduct operations in that courthouse. Despite that agreement, your officers went in to conduct operations in that courthouse. They went in plain clothes and masked, so maybe they were aware of the agreement, maybe they weren't. Either way, it was unprofessional not to honor the agreement with the court. There is also a court rule against photographing people in the courthouse. They were photographing people in the courthouse. They either didn't know or didn't care about that court rule. Either way, it was unprofessional. They were pursuing an intern and taking photos of this young intern who was not the person supposedly sought. The intern was in high school. The person sought was in his 30s. It shouldn't be too hard to tell the difference. They couldn't. It was unprofessional. A state judge escorted the intern out to his car to take him back to high school. The agents didn't recognize the judge. They operate against the agreement in a courtroom and don't bother to know who the judges are. Again, unprofessional. They followed the judge out to his parked car, which was parked in a spot reserved for judges. Whether or not they already knew he was a judge, it does not take much in terms of powers of deduction to understand that the person getting into a car in a parking spot reserved for judges is probably a judge. Again, unprofessional. Then they threatened to smash his windows and drag him from the car. A judge with a high school intern in the car who's not the guy they're looking for. That kind of escalation seems unprofessional and irresponsible. Then they held the kid for half an hour in another vehicle while they figured out that, in fact, the high school kid was not the 30-plus-year-old person that they were supposedly looking for. Nobody was hurt, but there was nothing professional about that entire exchange. And I would ask you to send a signal down to your folks to stop that kind of dangerous and unprofessional nonsense, particularly in our courthouses. Let me ask you, why don't you deconflict with local enforcement when you operate?
our officers do. We welcome cooperation from local law enforcement and want them at the state level, at the local level, to cooperate with us so that we can continue to conduct our federal operations
That's the difference.
with the safety of the cooperation that comes from those types of agreements.
Deconflicting and cooperating are two different things. They can overlap, but they are two different things. You deconflict when you plan an operation in another law enforcement agency's jurisdiction, like here, the court sheriffs, and let them know what you're going to do. This all could have been headed off if you'd spoken to if your people had spoken to the sheriffs first and said, we're concerned about this guy. Oh no, he's an intern, he's in high school. None of this was necessary if they had bothered to deconflict. So please, send the message down to your people that there's a reason that deconflicting is standard law enforcement practice for, among other things, officer safety. Will you do that?
Yes, sir, but I will tell you that our law enforcement are being doxxed at unprecedented levels. So at times we've run into situations in sanctuary cities or in sanctuary states where notifying that local law enforcement on some of these operations has doxed them and their families and leaked a law enforcement operation, which puts people's lives in jeopardy. So they absolutely want to work with cooperative local law enforcement.
About that,
and in that case
I strongly
specifically,
suspect that there's a big difference
these
between
individuals,
non-cooperation and actual interference with your operations. But I'll reserve that to a question for the record so you can substantiate that. Could you explain this?
Sir, I'm looking at a picture of an interior, looks like a bedroom.
Of an airplane?
Yes, sir.
You're not familiar with that?
These photos are not accurate. If you're referring to the airplanes that the Department of Homeland Security has purchased and are purchasing, we're using them for long-range command and control aircraft that is dictated in statute by Congress for the Department of Homeland Security to have a plane.
Luxury jet with a bedroom in it?
Yeah, we used a 737. I've been on it once, but it is being used by other administration officials, and it is used for command and control flights for the department. The department has found that in purchasing our aircraft, that we will save the taxpayers hundreds of millions of dollars.
Does it have a bedroom
in fact, we spent $1.42 billion on ICE deportation flights last year.
Does it have a bedroom in it?
I believe it's being refurbished and not having a bedroom in it. So it is being refurbished.
What kind of deportee justifies being flown out of the country in a luxury jet with a bedroom and accommodations like this?
There are aircraft being purchased that will be utilized for executive air travel and for deportations.
Well,
if you remember in the past, we have used jets of this size and this configuration for deportations in the past. If you remember
this configuration, by this configuration you mean with a bedroom and luxury accommodations like this,
that plane
used for deportations. Is that true?
Sir, we have 737s that are being purchased by the department to replace contracts that we have on ICE deportations. That's what they're going to be used for. And in fact, the Coast Guard is the only entity within the Department of Homeland Security that has jets at this point in time. They had two G5s that were 20 to 25 years old that are being replaced so that they can continue to serve our Coast Guard and our military for years to come.
About these aircraft. They've been reported as saying, although they don't want to say publicly this, but individuals described as senior administration officials have described these airplane purchases as the world's worst deal and an abuse of federal funds. Can you tell me what the Republicans on this committee who voted for what I call the billionaires bill that gave you the money to buy these jets knew about your plans to acquire luxury jets when they voted for that money?
The dollars for these airplanes was appropriated by Congress. In fact, it's mandated from Congress and rules that you've given us that we need to have a long-range command and control aircraft that will seat up to 17 people in the Department of Homeland Security for national security purposes. We are complying with the law. Those planes are being refurbished and will be utilized for that, and they'll be utilized by members of the administration and other components.
First,
they will also cut our costs, sir, by almost 40%. We are saving the taxpayer 40% by purchasing our own aircraft
May I
and
have a
operating
minute?
them rather than being susceptible to the contracts that they have today.
May I have an extra 2 minutes to fill in the filibuster there?
I'll give you 30 seconds beyond the 44
Will
seconds
you-
you got now.
Truthfully answer a question for the record about your role in stopping the civil rights investigation into the Minnesota shootings.
Sir, I don't know what you're talking about. I did not stop any investigations whatsoever.
Will you testify truthfully if you get a QFR?
Yes, I testified truthfully. I did not
And will you
stop.
testify in the District of Columbia Federal Court contempt proceeding?
Sir, I do not know what you're referencing, and I would hope for some context.
The Federal District Court contempt proceeding related to the deportation, contrary to a court order, of individuals to Venezuela. Will you testify in that proceeding?
Sir, I think that you're referencing something that I have a gag order to, but I can certainly follow up with you.
My time's up. Thank you.
Senator Kennedy, you're next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Madam Secretary, for being here. President Trump, ably assisted by Mr. Stephen Miller, quickly in the President's second administration developed policies to secure our southern border, policies that you and the Department of Homeland Security implemented. And I congratulate all of you on your success. Properly vetting people at the southern border is not racist, is it?
No,
Could you answer for the record?
no, it is not racist.
Properly vetting people at the southern border is prudent, isn't it?
Yes, sir, it is.
And to do that, we need the Border Patrol, do we not?
Yes, we do.
And we also need ICE, do we not?
Yes, we do.
Okay. I just wanted to get my congratulations on the record. I believe you have a policy, Madam Secretary, that you have to approve all contracts at your department over $100 million.
No, sir, I have a policy in place that I review contracts. My deputy chiefs have the ability to review anything under 5 million. Above that, I evaluate and look at.
Okay. And you do that, I understand, to try to curb waste and abuse of taxpayer money. Is that right?
Yes, sir. In fact, it's been extremely effective. We've saved the taxpayers over $13.2 billion just by evaluating contracts, negotiating lower ones, and canceling ones that aren't necessary to do our duties.
How do you square that concern for waste, which I share, with the fact that you have spent $220 million running television advertisements that feature you prominently?
Sir, the president tasked me with getting the message out to the country and to other countries where we were seeing the invasion come from, with putting commercials out that told them that if they were in this country illegally, that they needed to leave, or we would detain them and remove them, and they'd not get the chance to come back to America the right way. That has been extremely effective.
Ask you to run these advertisements, is that right?
We had that conversation, yes, before I was put in this position and sworn in and confirmed, and since then as well.
Okay. Did you bid out those service contracts?
Yes, they did. They went out to a competitive bid, and career officials at the department chose who would do those advertising commercials.
And the people that you ended up picking were people who had formerly done your political work back in South Dakota, is that right?
No, that's not correct, sir.
I think it is.
No, it's not, sir. The individuals who, I believe the careers who they chose were two different media firms. There's been conversation about their subcontractors, but we have no legal authority to look into subcontractors on work like that.
Okay. And you're saying that you're testifying that President Trump approved this ahead of time. Is that my understanding?
We had conversations about making sure that we were telling people.
No, ma'am. I'm asking you, sorry to interrupt, but the president approved ahead of time you spending $220 million running TV ads across the country in which you are featured prominently.
Yes, sir. We went through the legal processes, did it
Did the
correctly,
president
worked
know
with
you were gonna
OMB.
do this?
Yes.
He did?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay.
And one thing, Senator, I think would be helpful to know is how effective that communications has been. That
Well, they were
overwhelmingly
effective in your name recognition. I mean, I personally just, I mean, to me, it puts the president in a terribly awkward spot. And and I'm not saying you're not telling the truth. It's just hard for me to believe, knowing the president, as I do, that you said, Mr. President, here's some ads I've cut and I'm going to spend $220 million running them, that he would have agreed to that. I don't think Russ Vogt at OMB would have agreed to that. It's something we have to defend. I'm on the Appropriations Committee. My research shows that you did not bid them out, that you in fact, one of the people you picked, the strategy group, Safe America Media was a company formed 11 days before you picked them, and that the strategy group got most of the money, and the head of that is married to your former spokesperson. Look, we all have friends who are qualified. I'm not quibbling with that. It troubles me. A fifth to a quarter of $1 billion of taxpayer money when we're scratching for every penny and we're fighting over rescission packages. I just can't agree with Madam Secretary. Are you still running those ads?
No, Senator, I did not have anything to do with picking those contractors. I know politicals at the Department of Homeland Security did.
I understand. Are you
Mayor
still running
officials
those
followed
ads?
the competitive bid process for
Are you
that.
still running
Everything
those
was,
ads?
I think the ads are due to end here in March, I think within a week or
So
two.
they
I'm
are
not sure of the
still
update. The one that is running is focusing on angel families. Have you seen that? It is the one that's talking about this is our why. This is why we work every day.
Okay.
Is for the angel
I've gotta
families
move
and their
on.
victims that need to.
After the two killings in Minneapolis, and I think there's a lot of video on them, Madam Secretary. I think people can see the video and draw their own conclusions. Are you and your department conducting an investigation of those?
Sir, the investigation is being led by the FBI. HSI was involved. In fact, our HSI agents on the ground.
I'm sorry to cut you off, but I got so little time. I believe at the time you said these were acts of domestic terrorism. Is that right?
Sir, in answer to questions at the press conference that afternoon, it was that it appeared to be.
Yeah, but you said these appeared to be acts of domestic terrorism.
And as I've said previously in this hearing, is that
first, Madam Secretary, did you say
we're getting information from a chaotic scene on the ground and relaying information to the American people.
Okay. Now, again, those videos are public. People can draw their own conclusions. I think it'd be safe to say you got some pushback on that. Mm-hmm. Would that be fair?
Yes, sir.
And you had some criticism. I'm not saying the criticism was accurate or inaccurate. I think you did. What got my attention was that you you blamed those statements on Mr. Stephen Miller at the White House, did you not?
No, sir, I did not. And in fact, where you're seeing that is in a news article of anonymous sources. And anonymous sources say a lot of things, but I've never said that at all.
Well, here's what you said on the record. I'm going to read your words. Quote, everything I've done at the direction of the president and Stephen.
Sir, where did you see me say that at? You read that in a
was
news
reported
article with no sources
you said it
affiliated
on the
to
record on January 27th of 2026. Did I
Sir,
read your words accurate?
I enjoy working with the president and with Stephen Miller, and that day we were working to get as much information to the American people as possible. That is what we'll continue to do, and as that happens, we'll go
forward. Do you
forward.
think it was fair to blame Mr. Miller?
Sir, I did not do that. You're reading from a newspaper article with
Yes, ma'am.
anonymous sources.
Are you denying that you said that?
Sir, I'm not going to speak to that situation that is relayed on anonymous sources that no
This
one
wasn't
has heard me
anonymous.
say that.
It was you.
No. Who
I mean, you
reported
said
that
it.
to that newspaper?
They're quoting you on the record, saying it's Stephen's fault. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Klobuchar.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Secretary Noem, as Secretary of Homeland Security, you oversaw Operation Metro Search. Is that correct?
Yes, as secretary, I oversee ICE and CBP and HSI officers that were there doing their work.
3,000 ICE agents, border control to Minnesota, outnumbering our 10 Metro Police departments, outnumbering by 3 to 1 the number of sworn police officers in Minneapolis and St. Paul. Is that correct?
Yeah. We were working to do targeted operations against
If you
criminal
could answer yes
illegal
or no.
aliens, and we needed to do that in a safe manner to make sure that we could ensure the safety of our law enforcement officers.
Two of my constituents, Renée Good and Alex Pretti, were killed. They should be alive today. In fact, in 1 month in the city of Minneapolis, when you look at the 3 fatalities that were results of shooting, 2 of 3 were committed by federal agents. Are you aware of that?
Yes, I am.
So your agents, not only their actions resulted in the deaths of 2 innocent American citizens, but they repeatedly violated my constituents' First Amendment rights to assemble. You say you believe in the Second Amendment right to bear arms, but Alex Pretti was criticized repeatedly by officials in the administration for having a lawful permit to carry and having a gun. Your agents violated the Fourth Amendment rights of my constituents by ramming through doors of innocent people's homes, innocent citizens' home, without any kind of a warrant, and violated the Fifth Amendment right to due process. So as I've shared with my colleagues, if you believe in federalism, in freedom, and in liberty, you should be horrified by what the Department of Homeland Security did in Minnesota. So my first question is, having spoken to Mr. Homan, what is the exact number of DHS agents still in Minnesota?
Well, I believe that there is still close to 650 there, counting the investigators that are there, working to get to the bottom of the unprecedented fraud that has been found in the Medicaid
Was
funding.
5-year-old Liam involved in that fraud? As you know, I am all in on prosecuting fraud. I put in place the U.S. attorney who exposed the fraud under the Biden administration and brought the bulk of the prosecutions, and also recommended to Mr. Blanche that Joe Thompson be the acting U.S. attorney who led those prosecutions and now has left the office because the Department of Justice asked him and many others to investigate Renée Good's wife instead of doing their jobs doing fraud. So what I want to know is, when are you going to get down to the original footprint as promised to us?
We're continuing to work at that, although those investigators will continue to stay there to get to the bottom of that fraud, to make sure that those vulnerable people that rely on those programs actually get services from those federal dollars that are spent, that it's not stolen by criminals and used by individuals to enrich themselves and send it out of the country.
Secretary Chung-Li Tao, are you aware that agents bashed in the door of a U.S. citizen, among elder with no criminal record,
I can't speak to the specifics of that
Did you
case.
see the photos of that man being dragged out of his house in Crocs and in his underwear?
Yes, I did.
Do you believe that he was involved in fraud?
Do not know where that status of that investigation is.
Are you aware that he is a son of a beloved nurse that treated our soldiers in Vietnam?
I believe that we have laws in this country that need to be enforced and need to be applied
Your
equally to
agents,
everyone.
speaking of enforcing the laws and following the laws, did they have a judicial warrant when they rammed through an American citizen's door?
Our law enforcement officers follow the same protocols and procedures that all law enforcement do.
Are
as
you
to how
aware
they
that he
move
tried
forward.
to show his identification to show that he was American citizen and they didn't want to see it?
Again, these officers conduct themselves in processes. If something was done inaccurately, then certainly we will make sure that we correct it and rectify it in the
Are
future.
you aware that the person they were looking for was in prison and had been in prison for years? His
Yes,
name
I
is
am.
Lou
That's
Ma.
a target. Yes, we do targeted operations going after and
Do
looking
you
for.
agree that it is unacceptable for your agents to ram into someone's door and drag someone out in their underwear in below zero temperatures when they have the wrong guy?
Our officers conduct targeted operations and utilize the law processes that are given to them and the
You will not answer
tools.
that you think that's wrong.
They needed to identify that individual, and
They
that
couldn't
individual.
identify him by looking at his identification. Instead, they had to drag him out, throw him in a car, and drive him around for an hour. How about pulling off-duty police officers, Madam Secretary, every single one of whom made clear who they were. They were people of color, off-duty police officers. In Brooklyn Park, Minnesota, the chief described how one off-duty officer, someone of color, a U.S. citizen, was stopped and confronted by ICE agents with their guns drawn, demanding her proof of citizenship. As Chief Bruley said, I wish I could tell you that this was an isolated incident, but the other chief said it had happened to their own officers. Why were these officers stopped?
We have thousands of law enforcement operations that we do every single day.
Do you think they were stopped because they were people of
murderers
color?
and
Were they
rapists
racially
and drug
profiled?
traffickers
Ms.
off
Noem.
our streets. When I look at these American families that have been victimized by criminals that we have removed from cities and from communities, I'm grateful for the work that our ICE officers do. And by your only
Are you
focusing,
defending stopping
I would like
off-duty
to hear you
police
talk about
officers
some of the
of color
operations
and
that we've
dragging
done
a
to
Hmong
bring
elder
people
out of
to
his
justice.
home?
When you only talk about these situations like this that we are conducting, and you don't talk about the good work that they do to protect people from being victimized by people that are in this country that want to conduct violent crimes against them or take advantage of them. The laws need to apply to everyone, and we're out there enforcing the law.
I am a former prosecutor,
Context is
Ms. Noem, and
incredibly
I
important.
have always
in every
worked with our
situation.
police well, but that's not what was going. These ICE agents were not following police procedures. After the killings of Renée Good and Alex Pretti, when I spoke to Alex's parents, they told me that you calling him a domestic terrorist, this was directly from them, the day after he was killed. A nurse in our VA, Alex, one of the most hurtful things they could ever imagine was said by you about their son. Do you have anything you want to say to Alex Pretti's parents?
We were relying in the hours after that incident that was so horrific on information we were getting from the ground from our agents.
If you had
But I would
anything you
say
wanted to say to the
but I would
parents
say
or to the family of
that's what I'm
Renée
doing
Good
right
after
now, is
you
that
called
I
them domestic
can't
terrorists.
even imagine what they have gone through in the loss of their son and the loss of their family members.
But
It's
how about
absolutely
specifically
tragic.
calling them
And I
domestic
send
terrorists
them-
without any evidence of that?
Sir, ma'am, I did not call him a domestic terrorist. I said it appeared to be an incident of.
I think the parents saw it for what it was. After the killings, the federal government refused to cooperate with state law enforcement. Agents blocked Minnesota investigators from accessing the scene. I know because I got directly calls from the mayor. I tried to call the DOJ. I tried to do everything I could because they were very worried about what was going to happen immediately, especially after Alex Pretti's death. Do you think that blocking local law enforcement from the scene of a shooting makes people safer? Yes or no?
Actually, our HSI law enforcement officers risked their lives on that scene, preserving evidence and keeping the violent rioters away from the evidence so it
What
could be
life was
preserved for
lost
the
at that
investigation.
scene, Secretary Noem?
Yes, I
It was
understand that.
Alex Pretti's life
And
that was
after it
lost.
became very,
I believe it is in the interest of justice to have a full and transparent investigation.
yes, the investigation's being led by FBI and internal investigations as well into this incident.
Will you commit to reversing the decision to cooperate with the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension, an agency of seasoned professionals that the agents worked with directly, FBI agents worked with directly to investigate after the shooting, assassination of Speaker Hortman, after the killing of those two little kids in that church with the bullets going through those stained glass windows? In both incidents, our federal and local law enforcement work together and are working together in those investigations, but they have been blocked, the locals have, from being part of this. Why is that, Ms. Noem?
The FBI is leading this investigation, and I would leave that question for them to answer.
Thank you.
Before Senator Blackburn, without objection, I'll introduce into the record unaccompanied children case study that the Trump Health and Human Services provided to my office. These records describe horrible cases in which children were forced to work to pay smuggling fees, physical assaulted by sponsors, and denied a chance to attend schools. The unaccompanied children case study are further evidence of the previous administration's policies to put children in harm's way. I appreciate the cooperation of the Trump administration. Is there any objection?
Mr. Chairman,
Proceed.
I do not object, but I would like to have unanimous consent to enter into the record the details of the 3 instances where the Secretary referred to the victims that we've discussed and as engaged in acts of domestic terrorism. We have the exact statement, the exact date and time that you made those statements. I'd ask unanimous consent to put those in the record.
On both requests, any objection? No objection heard. Senator Blackburn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Madam Secretary, thank you for being here today. And I want to thank you so much for the work that DHS and FEMA have done in Tennessee with the recent ice storm, but also previously with Hurricane